I had been like hours at sea before I tried to wing and everything. So like when the wind goes down or like you find yourself like a mile offshore and you have no wind, you feel like a lot more comfortable
Yeah.
because you've been there before and you're like, okay, I can paddle back, and it's not as stressful, which helps a lot too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Being comfortable in the water is a huge,
Yeah,
huge
that's
part.
a big factor.
Yeah. So, like I've said it many times before on the podcast is learning how to downwind and being way offshore, just by yourself with a paddle and a board. If you haven't been there before,
It's a weird place to be.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the X Foils. I am sitting here with Ricardo.
What's up? Nice to be here.
What's your full name?
I'm Ricardo Avila.
Avila.
Yeah, Avila.
Right. So this was an impromptu. Was it 2 days ago or
Yeah,
yesterday?
Yesterday, yeah.
So yesterday I texted you because you're starting to learn how to downwind and you're catching on pretty quick, scary quick. And so you've got some supping background to you. And I really honestly don't know anything about you. So this is actually the first. I don't know anything about anybody, but
Right. Nobody has done a podcast. So.
yeah, but this is the first time that I really have not much context to you and what you've done. We've never hung out. We've never surfed together. And there's actually we did. We were in La Ocho, and you were on a sup board that looked like a longboard.
It was a longboard, yeah.
What's
My
a
dad's
longboard?
Yeah.
Okay, so it was a longboard, and you were sinking to like your knees to your waist, paddling onto these micro waves. I was on a sup foil,
I remember.
right? And prior to that, you had come into the shop and bought a KT Dragonfly to learn how to downwind. Okay,
Yeah.
and you came into the shop. We had never met before. You ordered the KT before they came. Then you picked it up, and so when I saw you in La Ocho, I didn't really know. I'm like, I feel like I recognize you, but I wasn't really sure. And then afterwards, talking to somebody, I'm like, dude, there's this guy. He's like down to his hips on a longboard paddling. He's like, yeah, that's Ricardo. And I think your name has come up a couple times on the podcast. Are you a fan of the podcast? Have you listened to it?
I've listened to like a few clips here and there.
Oh
on
no,
Instagram,
you could lie and say yes, you're a huge fan. I'm just
yeah,
kidding.
every episode now. But yeah, I've listened to a few clips and like I know a few of the people who've been here.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that's about it.
Yeah. So you have been mentioned a couple times because we do talk about downwind foiling a lot and how difficult it actually is to get into the sport. And you can tell me, right? But your background is in supping.
Yeah.
Right? So downwind sup,
Yeah, like I started to paddle on 2013.
you're going to want to put the mic up a little bit.
A little bit up. Okay. So I first started paddling on 2013, like mostly flat water, but I always like saw clips of people doing downwinds in Hawaii and like all around. So I straight up wanted to go to the ocean, but I had like really wide boards. They were like 12.6 by 30, really heavy, so they didn't handle really well outside. But like
And where were you paddling these boards around?
on the lagoon.
Oh,
Yeah.
just on the lagoon?
On the
And you were
lagoon.
racing them on the lagoon, or you're
Yeah.
just paddling?
Yeah, like racing.
Okay.
Like the first time I got on a board, it was a race board because I was a little kid, and they said like, oh, if you want to go upwind, it's easier on a race board. So they gave me one, and I was like, it's way cooler because it looks fast. Like if you compare it to like a round board, it looks cool.
Yeah.
So I started racing.
How old were you?
I was like 12 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm 23 now.
Yeah.
So. And yeah, I've been always really competitive, so like I caught up to it pretty fast. And after that, I started doing it as a hobby because I used to play soccer too, and like then I played volleyball, and I was good at it. I started training and putting in some work and dialing my equipment down. And yeah, I got to downwinding in 2014, a year after.
And you're using that race board, but you were taking it out in the ocean?
Yeah, by then I had a 25 wide board. Yeah.
How long was that?
12.6 too. Yeah, and yeah, I started doing downwinds on that board. It was really unstable because they were like kind of round on the bottom, and like pretty thin tails. Like if you compare it to a foil, it's pretty wide, but for a stand-up, it's narrow.
Yeah.
And then we got into 14s, which are like a bit longer and thinner, and like it's basically made for downwind. So that's pretty much my background.
Was your family into the supping, or why did you get into it so early, or what was it that had attracted you to it?
Well, my dad went once to the lagoon, like to rent a board and like kill some time. I was in some classes, I don't remember. It was like 2011 maybe. And he said like, oh, he would like that. Como que a Ricardo le gustaría, and he took me to it. And that's how I learned, yeah.
And did he paddle with you as well?
Yeah.
He did races?
I'm not sure if he raced. I don't think so. Like he did a few downwinders, that's for sure. And he used to go on the kayak with me. When like I got a paddleboard and we got a kayak. It's from my uncle. So he would grab it and just go with me. And we did like trips around the island and paddle places.
Nice.
Yeah.
And back then, were there a lot of competitions?
Yeah.
And
There
how
was
about
a
now?
Pretty big scene.
Comparably?
It was a little bit bigger before, but it took a dip maybe at like 2017, 18 a little bit, but since the pandemic, it's picked up quite a bit, yeah.
Yeah, because from what I hear is, I've only been here for 6 years, right?
Okay.
And talking to people in the community, there was always a huge water sports scene, right? Lots of sailing, there was lots of supping, and there was this craze about it. And now, I don't know, like it's died down a little bit. There's not as much competitions. I guess there might not be as much sponsors or money available. So I just wonder what happened or where all these people went,
Well,
that were
I
doing
honestly
this.
Don't know what happened, but like when I was 13, 14, I remember there were like big events, some international, and we had prize money. Like people would come from Hawaii, from France, from the islands of the Caribbean, like all around and race here.
Yeah.
But it's slowly started to die off. Like the biggest race here, first it was the Paddle Royale. That was, I think it ended on 2013. And we had the Rincon Beach Boy. And that was a pretty big one. In Rincon, like everybody like from all different levels came out on Villa Cofresi. And there was like a 6-mile race. It's maybe 8 miles, I'm not sure. From Villa Cofresi to Domes,
Okay.
to El Faro. And there was like a short one too. So like a lot of people just got together and paddled. It was pretty cool.
Nice. And did you travel for it, or you stayed in Puerto Rico doing this?
I traveled for the first time on 2015 to the Carolina Cup. That's on North Carolina. And yeah, that was it until like 2023, 2022. I picked up paddling again because like I said I'm done in 2018 because I was senior and like going to college and whatnot. I was like,
Did you study here?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm still studying actually, but I said I'm not gonna race anymore. Like, I paddled here and there a few times, got bored, and yeah. But after the pandemic, I picked it up again and started racing. So yeah.
There was a ISA.
ISA World Competition.
And were you in that? The
Yeah.
one that just came here now?
Yeah, I started paddling because of that.
Oh, really?
They say like, oh, there's gonna be an
Shit.
ISA here.
You're like,
I was
I'm out of the-
what? I'm gonna be on the team.
You're like, I'm out of the game.
I'm gonna train.
And they let you back on the team?
Yeah, we did some qualies in like a national circuit, and yeah, I qualified for the technical and for the distance race. Yeah.
And what's the technical?
Okay, so there's 3 types of races.
Yeah.
First race is the sprint, which is like 200 meters, maybe less.
Do you
It's-
run from the beach
Yeah.
into the water and then back out?
Yeah.
With your board?
Yeah. Well, without the board, with
Okay.
the paddle. So you're like stand on a straight line
Yeah.
on the beach. The marshal goes boop, and you start running. Get on your board. It's called the beach start, and paddle towards the buoy. Round it, go back to the beach, and run to the finish line. That's it.
And are these with these 14-footers too?
Yeah.
Damn, there must be some carnage going around that
Yeah,
buoy, right?
People get like
Like stand up on the back, nose up in the
Yeah.
air, swinging it around,
boards hit each other. People fall.
get stuck on the buoy,
Yeah. And
hugging that buoy, right?
Yeah. And then there's a technical race, which is like 5K, like 3 miles. Depends, could be longer, could be shorter. And you have like maybe 5 buoys, and it's like a slalom course. You have maybe like an M shape, Y shape. Depends. So a little bit longer, but not that long, like a long distance, and you get like a lot of action because it's a lot of times in the surf. Like it's same dynamic. Like you go running from the beach, stand up, go through the waves, pivot on a buoy, then like you gotta catch a wave to the inside buoy, and like sometimes you go to the beach, get your board, run like on a flag, and then do it again. So it depends. Like, but that's like my favorite type of racing. It's the most technical, hence the name.
Yeah.
And then there's the distance racing, which is like, 8 miles plus.
Damn.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah, it's kind of painful, but it's
And
cool.
it's upwind included in that too?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah,
And
like,
that's in the ocean?
yeah, like sometimes we do it here from the marina or the lagoon, and we go out to do like the rounding El Morro. It's called La Vuelta.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we pass El Perro, go out through Pressure Point, then La Ocha, and go in El Morro.
That's brutal.
Yeah, and then you have like a 4-mile upwind, which is nice.
No thanks.
Back then, there used to be a lot of downwind races too. So like straight downwind, no upwind or anything.
Yeah, I was talking to, who was it? I guess it was Hector. It was the last podcast I did, and I was learning how to downwind. I have no sup experience, no nothing. I've never been on a sup board. I mean, I've paddled around like, you go rent a paddleboard
Sure.
in the lagoon like every tourist would do. I can
Right.
do that, And learning how to downwind, you're out there for like 4 miles at a time, 5 miles at a time, just paddling, trying to get up on foil. So it's different, right, than what you guys are doing. And then I realized, I'm like, well, man, people do this as their sport, just paddling downwind and not getting on foil,
Yeah, but
right?
It's not as hard on. Like, it's like
I
when
know,
you compare
these-
paddling a like 7-something 8-foot board
Yeah.
versus like a 14 board.
Yeah. No, I know it's different, but I was trying to, get in my head to be like, this is not that brutal. People do this for fun. Some people think this is a sport. Yeah, the boards are different for sure. But
Yeah,
man, paddling upwind,
it's
no
brutal.
thank you.
Yeah,
Did you ever do the prone?
I mean, I've gotten into boards like friends board, but nah, it's not
No?
for me.
No,
That's hardcore.
that's hardcore.
Yeah, that's hardcore.
Laying on your board face down, that's rough.
Yeah.
That's not fun. And there's a surfing aspect to the SUP as well.
Yeah.
Was
SUP
that in the
surf.
ISA?
Yeah.
And did you compete in that?
No, I only did racing.
But have you done like a surf
Yeah.
foil, surf
well,
SUP competitions?
Subsurf. Yeah, I did one in Mexico, a few here, and it's fun, but I don't train for it. I don't practice it that much. So
Practice it as being a competitive discipline for
Right.
you.
Yeah.
But you do it often for fun, or
I am shortboarding more.
Oh, really?
Lately, but yeah.
I mean,
like
it's summertime now. You can't shortboard, right?
Yeah, but I've been foiling and
Yeah.
yeah, I've been foiling.
Yeah, foiling is the
Yeah.
summertime sport. I forgot you're a foiler. Yeah, we could talk about foiling. Have you ever been to Goyu to Dorado? I was thinking about it as I was driving there for like 35 minutes, thinking about my traffic drive home for an hour, thinking I should have gone to La Ocho instead. But La Ocho for me is just so brutal. Like, every time I go there, I smash my foil onto something.
Yeah, it's kind of shallow.
Yeah.
Like when you get near shore, it's pretty shallow.
Are you super familiar with that spot?
I learned how to surf there. So
So you grew up surfing there, and
yeah,
have you smashed your foil on the reef?
a couple of times.
Just a couple. I didn't see that in your post when you said foils for sale, smashed a couple times on the reef.
yeah. I smashed a few foils. I've hit the rocks a few times,
Yeah.
but everyone.
I
right?
know. It's part of it.
It's part
just,
of it.
Every time I hit the reef, I like grind my teeth. I'm like, there's some foils I just don't want to.
Yeah.
Like if I want to test this, like what I was doing this morning is testing like a downwind foil and testing a different tail, a different position. I do not want to scratch those foils.
Definitely.
Like I want to keep those pristine because I need to beat somebody in a race, even if we're not racing. Downwind
You're always
foiling.
racing,
It's
yeah.
always got to be a little bit competitive, right?
Right.
Even if somebody's like Gio doing the longest run, someone's got to do it. You know, someone's got to beat him.
Yeah,
Someone's got to
we
do
gotta
it
do it
faster,
faster.
right? It's all like we're all competing against each other in some form way,
Right.
right? Who's downwinding with the sup, with the 14-footers?
I mean, since we don't race,
because I'd assume that's more fun,
yeah,
right?
it's the most fun. Yeah, but like, it was maybe like a year ago with Christian and Max. We did a downwind from Caballos to La Laguna, and and Mari Carmen too. Like Mari Carmen, like she's a beast. Like she got medals on the ISA on 3 categories.
Really?
Yeah, and Max was the world champion, so we're pretty competitive. But like we like to do downwinds too. But since we don't race like on downwind style courses, we barely do downwinds anymore.
So when you first contacted me and you're asking for a board, I was trying to recommend what size. And when somebody's getting into the sport for the first time, you want to go big.
Right.
And you ordered the smallest downwind I've ordered to date. You're like, I want this one. I'm like, 90 liters? What is it, 90 liters?
Yeah, I first
7.0?
said like I want a 6'9", and you were like, dude, you don't want to get a 6'9". Yeah.
So what did you end up having? Like, what do you have now?
I have a 7.0. 7.0, 1900 liters. Yeah. It's pretty small too. But
Yeah, that's
fine.
small. But the 90 liter would have been ridiculous.
Yeah, that's too small.
Yeah, I mean, even now thinking about it, and the way that I've progressed through downwinding, I'm by no means an expert at all. I'm just enjoying it and trying to figure it out for myself, like everybody else is. And I find myself wanting to go bigger.
Yeah.
Right at the
I get that.
beginning, I wanted to go smaller. I was like, oh, I can do it now. Now I want to go smaller, right? And that kind of feels like you feel like the natural progression is that you
Right.
start on something big and then you
go
start
small.
downsizing.
Yeah.
But now I feel like I downsized a little bit, and I'm at this point where I feel like I want to upsize because it's.
What are you writing now? 7 what?
I'm in between a bunch of boards, but
Right.
my main board is a 7.5 by 18, 105
7.5,
liters.
Okay.
And it's narrow, it's fast, it gets up fine, but there are days when it's really light because sometimes the conditions just aren't there, right? We
Yeah.
don't have any swell, it's 13 knots, or it's
borderline.
very marginal, right? So to go out in those kinds of conditions, you need something that's just a little bit, like gives you a little bit more juice. And I mean, there's nothing worse than going out on a downwinder and not getting up on foil.
Definitely.
Right? Like, then what's
It's
the
brutal.
point? Who cares if I'm on a tiny board or not? I prefer to be on something that's 14 foot if it gives me up on foil,
course.
versus not. I've paddled out a bunch of times not getting up on foil, crying that I wish I had a bigger board or something, or a bigger foil, but
Yeah.
I didn't actually cry, but like maybe one salty tear. That was it.
One tier.
So how did you get into foiling? What was the first thing that you did?
So
Because you said you're a short boarder, so you're a good surfer. You've
yeah,
been
but I
surfing your
started
whole
to
life.
surf like after paddling.
Learned how to surf after paddling.
Yeah, because I traveled for the first time on 2015, and I went to some ISAs on Fiji on 2016.
Fiji.
Yeah, Fiji. It was
Awesome.
awesome. But back then, I pretty much didn't know how to surf. Like I boogie board and catch the waves with the sup. But I was there and I was like, what am I doing in Fiji? And I don't know how to surf, like barely. I'm a super cook.
Yeah.
So like when I came back, I started surfing. And by that time, Kyle Lenny released a video of him downwind foiling. Like he chopped a 14 board, strapped a foil, and sent it. And I saw that and I was like, whoa, that's the future. Because like thing is, when you're downwinding on a 14, like you don't have as much information as you would have on a foil because you're lower in the water, but you have more time to react.
Yeah.
But on like the downwind foil, you're like way higher in the water, like I don't know, like 20 inches higher.
So you feel like you've got bird's eye view of the
so
swell.
you can see like all the lines and you're going really fast. So it's like, okay, you have more insight, but you have to react faster.
Yeah.
And like,
But also you're I mean, on a foil, you can move around so much.
That's what I saw. I was like, he's flying down, he's connecting bumps way faster. That looks awesome.
Yeah.
So that was 2016. So that there weren't any foils out in the market by then. So I started surfing and I kept paddling, all that. And on 2018, I think, Nash came out with their first foil. And I saw a guy with it on somewhere. I think it was La Ocho or something, and I had to have it. So I ordered it with little money I had and bought a board from Randy. So that's how I started, prone foiling.
Nice.
La Ocho, yeah. So I got yelled at a few times.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was probably one of the first foilers in La Ocho. So the learning curve was really bad, learning how to pump and like I mean, those foils were like this thick.
Yeah, they're fat.
Yeah, really fat.
Couple inches.
And really slow. And like I had like a 24-inch mast, which, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And why were they yelling at you?
Because like people saw like someone with a foil and they were like, yo, get out. Like you're going to cut me, you know, the typical, you know.
Yeah. I mean,
what are you doing with the foil in the lineup?
Yeah.
And like, it's understandable. Like, it's probably not the best place to be on a foil, but you know, like people got used to it, and like if you know how to control your board and you know what you're doing, you're fine. Yeah.
But you weren't like paddling in at the peak, or
No.
were you? No.
I was like on a shoulder.
Yeah, off to the side.
Yeah.
And when you started to do that foiling thing, were you a decent surfer?
Yeah, I could get by. Like I've gotten way better. Like
so the paddling into the wave wasn't an issue.
No.
The popping up standing on your board wasn't an issue.
On the foil at first, but it was pretty decent.
And you did nothing behind a boat, no e-foiling?
Well, the first time I tried a foil was with Mikey Vicens.
Okay.
On Rincon when he first started Sea Kindly.
And that was on an e-foil then?
No, that was
or
on
behind
a SUP on a jet ski.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he had like a 7-something SUP surfboard. It was really wide, and he got a box into it, and yeah, it was a gold foil, I remember.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was one of the blue ones.
Oh,
yeah.
One of those blue ones.
One of those blue ones. Yeah, so that was actually the first time. Then I got into the prone, and I tried an e-foil once in Ponce, but it was kind of difficult at first because, you know, throttle and everything.
Yeah. It can be weird. If you're not given the right instruction, the e-foils are strange because they've got so much thrust to them. Yeah. You know, they just they just plow through the water.
I mean, you can get the hang of it.
Yeah. I mean, coming through the school and teaching people how to foil, there's so many different ways that we can do it.
Yeah.
E-foiling, if somebody wants to foil like right away, that's
the way.
That's by far the easiest
way.
20 minutes, someone can learn how to foil. Like actually get some first flights. If they've got enough balance, you know, a little bit coordinated. I mean, not everybody, you know, it's not like scuba diving then, you know. Everyone can scuba dive. You put on a tank, you breathe underwater, you know, that's it. That's the standard, is that you know how to float. So yeah, for sure, you need some kind of, you know, degree balance, of being an athletic, and then you can do it. And if not, then it just takes you more time. But everybody can learn how to foil on e-foil, for sure. So learning how to foil, prone foil in La Ocho, and on this big fat foil.
Yep.
And nobody else around you? Or were there people at that point starting to join in? Did you have any?
I don't remember. Like in
nobody
La
was coaching you.
No.
It was just like
I just
to the wind.
Yeah, just sent it.
Nice.
And after that, the pandemic happened.
Mm-hmm.
So like I was in my house as everybody else, and then they came out with a wing. And I was like, no way, it's flat. And now you can have a wing and foil around. And I started saving up and bought a wing. And I noticed like my board was super small for that. So I got another board and started winging with that. Same thing, I just sent it.
You got a board? Did you get a board from Randy?
Yeah.
Oh, again?
Yeah.
Nice.
Again. Yeah, I was like a 5'3".
Okay.
If I'm not wrong. And then I met Manu from Caribbean Drone Service.
Yep.
I met him once at the beach. Like he was he was like on the same struggle bus I was, like trying to wing and figure it out. And we started winging together, and that's how we figured it out.
Nice.
Yeah. And same thing, like we started downwinding because like we didn't know how to go upwind with a foil. So, you know, downwinds and walking up the beach and all that.
Yeah, it's painful. Walking up the beach with a wing and a big fat donut board with a
Not
foil,
fun.
that is not fun. No. You want to start going upwind quick.
Yeah.
You had any sailing background, learning how to wing?
Well, my dad used to ride Hobie cats, and he was a sailor all his life, and he took me out on like some Hobies when I was little, so I knew the theory,
The concept,
of it, the concept behind it, but I hadn't sailed before, so I guess I just figured it out. Like, okay, you go like this, and like that's how you go upwind, and
Yeah. I mean, a huge part of it having a little bit of coordination.
Yeah, it's kind of intuitive. Like, you can a little bit.
You would think so,
A little bit.
but no, it's not.
It's not that much.
No. I mean, if you come from no wind background, not knowing anything about wind, it can be really difficult and frustrating, right? But having like this really good balance on a board, like
that helps
having
a lot.
hours and hours and hours, like that sup surfing, the sup racing, all of that sup stuff that you do contributes a huge amount to learning how to wing and learning how to downwind foil. I mean, it's pretty much 1-to-1 on that spectrum. But yeah, also with the winging, like you're balancing on this chunky board, right? And you know how that feels, and that's a hard part for a lot of people. It's like even 120 liters, 135 liters, we have some people that can hardly kneel on it, holding the wing up, right? So that's part of it.
Yeah.
And then learning how the wing, and then learning how to sail, then learning how to foil.
And probably like the biggest thing is like, since you've been like, well, I had been like hours at sea before I tried to wing and everything. So like when the wind goes down, or like you find yourself like a mile offshore and you have no wind, you feel like a lot more comfortable because you've been there before, and you're like, okay, I can paddle back, and it's not as stressful, which helps a lot too.
Yeah, being comfortable in the water is a huge part.
That's a big factor.
Yeah, so, like I've said it many times before on the podcast, is learning how to downwind and being way offshore, you know, just by yourself with a paddle and a board. If you haven't been there before,
it's a weird place to be.
Yeah, it can be, and especially when it starts to get really wild and there's lots of swell around, and you're getting tired, right? Like, I don't know how it is on a 14-footer, right? Because for sure it's exhausting, but I don't know to what point of fatigue that you get to. Do you redline? Like, do you like get to this point where you're like, holy shit, I can't anymore? And just because you're paddling so hard to catch a swell, or what would it be about it that gets you to that point?
Well, the thing is, like with a 14, you don't go down. Like on foiling, you have to sprint to get up. And once you're up, you kind of like coast around, and it's a little bit, you know, you don't paddle as much.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way, because you pump and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, once I get up on foil, I am not using my paddle at all.
Right.
I mean, I know Gio does, I know Roy does, I've seen Mickey do it as well. You might do it as well, because
it's
you're
natural.
so
It comes
used to
naturally.
it,
Yeah.
you know, I am not used to the paddling thing, and I don't like dipping it just gets me off of balance. I'd prefer to rely on my foil at that point. And it's very rare, unless I'm coming into the end of the run and the wind starts hitting me in the face and I feel like I want to try to end the run as far in as possible, then I'll start like putting my paddle in. But it's hard to coordinate that. So you're paddling, once you're up on foil, you're feeling like you can relax. You can take a breather, but on the 14...
You just paddle like to a lesser degree with less energy. Like you're just paddling normally. And you maybe sprint, catch a little wave, but then use that wave to catch the next. So like you're basically, you know, the wormholes on like what they call wormholes on the downwind foiling. Like when you have like a channel that you can see the two bumps, you basically want to put yourself there. So like take the wave that way, and then like try and turn the board to catch the other wave. So when you get like a decent technique, you don't have to sprint as much. You just have to like conserve your momentum. But like if you start like gassing out and paddling really hard to all the bumps, like you get red line really fast.
Yeah.
So it's like the same thing, like
I
try
guess
to
especially
remain
if you're
efficient.
especially if you're racing, like
Right.
that's a totally different thing. If you're trying to get to the finish as fast as possible,
Yeah.
that's a totally different way of spending your energy.
Yeah, so you want to sprint to take a wave, but once you're on the wave, you want to rest
Yeah.
and like conserve your energy.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, so being out there it's crazy because you're just way offshore. You're all by yourself. I mean, we go in groups,
Yeah,
but
but
we're
you're
all by
technically by
you're all by
yourself.
yourself.
Yeah.
Like I've seen the people doing it in Maui, and I think it's because there's a lot more people doing it that they end up finding somebody close by at one point, because you see the videos of them and there's like 3 of them together on
Down a row, like
downwinding together, and I'm like, how'd you do that? Did you guys like get up all together and then you end up downwinding together? Which eventually I assume when we're good enough that can
yeah,
happen.
you can
but
stay in a pack.
but right now it's like, okay, we're going, and then somebody like quickly gets something and goes, and they're off into the distance, and that's it. There's no way they're waiting for you. They're not stopping. At this point now in my journey, I feel like I can stop and like hang out, wait for somebody, or relax, or make a mistake and fall, because I don't feel like it's as crucial to like get up on foil again. But at the beginning, when you get up on foil, you do not want to come off foil.
Yeah,
like that
definitely.
is it. You just want to stay on foil.
I just want to
and
pop
get-
up one time.
Yeah, and
that's
get
it.
to the end, right? I mean, especially if you're on a 7-foot, 100-liter board,
Yeah.
you know. So how was that, learning how to downwind on the foil? At that point, you'd been winging.
Yeah.
You were doing downwinders with your wing.
Yeah.
And were you catching swell and like kind of putting yourself in that situation where
Yeah.
you'd feel the bumps and?
Like when I got the downwind board, I got a few times out of puntas and went upwind to caballos, rounded the buoy and tried to downwind with the wing.
Nice.
But what I noticed was like I got slowed down with the wing, because like when you start moving fast enough, the wing like falls and it gets in your middle, and
Yeah.
it's a lot of stuff happening at the same time.
That's a lot of drag.
Yeah, a lot of drag. But I kind of got used to it, and like, catching the bumps and like pumping around. And and then my first downwind I did from Cangrejos to Punta Las Maria, and it was brutal. Like everybody told me, yeah, you have to go out to the buoy, to caballos, and then go down. But I caught a little bump because I tried a flat water start, and I kept going on a straight line. And then, no bumps, a lot of chop, currents.
But
I made it.
Where were you? On the inside of the reef?
Yeah, that was stupid.
What?
Yeah. Like I didn't want to head out all the way because I was alone. And I mean,
That's rough.
it was rough.
That's a bay run.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that.
Yeah, it was
So you were
awful.
inside the reefs?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I've never done that.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
There's no reason. You don't want to do that.
Mickey does it sometimes because he lives in Isla Verde. So he paddles out, he does like quick ones, and he'll like rip down and then to his house. But it's more like
Yeah, like
cruising down
Yeah,
towards the
okay.
beach. He's not going like sideways, parallel to the beach. Yeah, there's not much energy in there.
Nah,
and it's,
not at all.
It points pretty northerly too,
yeah.
because it wants to run to the beach.
Yeah.
When you're out there, I guess now you know.
Yeah, you have to paddle
Which
like a mile
you knew,
offshore,
which you
and
knew.
okay,
You knew.
it's way easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my second run was from Pressure Point, from almost La Ocha to Punta Salinas. And that was way better. Like I used a little bit bigger foil and paddle to the wind line, which makes the world of a difference.
Yeah.
And I got up on the first try, foiled for like maybe a minute and fell down. And then I started to like try to sprint and get up as fast as I could and get gassed, like absolutely.
Yeah.
So I learned how to like, okay, just chill, take a break, sip some water, and then try again. And I started to get the hang of it. Yeah.
Did you record all of these sessions? Do you have
I have him on my Garmin.
You do?
But yeah.
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 Yeah, I think I recorded every single one I did, just because you want to know, like,
Yeah.
how long is it taking you? How long were you on foil? How fast were you going? When you were on foil, how fast were you going? You like,
Right.
there's something to gauge, and then you know where you're actually improving, and it makes a huge difference mentally. You know, if you think you did better that run, or you didn't, or you thought you did worse, but you actually did. So it's mentally, I think, if anybody is out there like learning how to do it, get some kind of device. I mean, hopefully you're carrying your phone with you anyway, because for
Right.
safety, take your phone and record it, you know, whatever
Our
it is.
location.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it makes a huge difference if you know how you're advancing in those scenarios, especially if you're doing a particular run over and over again. You know that if you're improving, you know which swells are faster, what wind is better for it, what angle is the best, you know? And it makes, for me, it makes a huge difference knowing on a day-to-day and a run-to-run how I'm improving and where I stand on terms of my skills, right? Because then you can compare them to somebody else and somebody else's
course.
foil, somebody else's skills. And I think then you start to gauge, you know, where you sit in this pack.
And you can see like what line are you taking and
Yeah.
like what's the way, what's not the way.
Yeah.
All that. Yeah.
So what was the gear that you ran through? Because you said you first started on this Nash big chunky foil.
It was a Nash Thrust, I believe.
Were you ever able to sell that?
I gave it away.
That's typical with those
Someone
things.
bought a mast and I was like, "Do you want a foil?"
Yeah.
Really for free? I was like, "Yeah, take it.
Take it,
It's
please."
taking dust in the
Yeah.
corner in my house." So
Yeah.
yeah. Then I got a unifoil, a Hyper 190.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a pretty good foil. Still have it.
Why'd you get the unifoil? Like, what brought you onto that?
Because I started seeing clips of people riding unifoil and signature, and they look like really slick and fast. And yeah, I was like, that looks good. I want to have that. And Mickey started bringing them here, or he bought like the range. And
Oh,
had them.
Mickey. Yeah.
And I bought it from him.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's, if anybody in Puerto Rico wants to buy foil gear, buy it from Mickey.
Yeah. Mickey's the guy.
Just wait for him to get tired of it or something just a tiny bit better to come out, and he will sell everything he's got for almost nothing. And did you know Mickey from your SUP days?
Yeah, he was like one of the best downwinders.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he used to ride the unlimited boards, which were like the 16, 17, 18 feet boards with a lot of rocker. The ones they used to cross the Molokai Channel and like, you know, the big downwinders. And yeah, he was like pretty much the guy.
Did he help you in your progression, like learning techniques or tips, or no?
Downwinding a little bit, yeah. Yeah, there was also Art. I think he's living in Maui now or in Hawaii. And Rafa, who like worked on San Juan paddleboarding.
Yeah.
And, like they lent me gear and like told me, like kind of guided me like where to go, like if I wanted to downwind and what paddle should I use, how should I paddle, all that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good to have some people that are on the in and in to give some tips. And it's nice to not be too proud to take advice. And I've learned that along the way, because in kiting at one point I got so good in kiting in my own area that I felt like, well, who's going to give me tips if I'm the best, you know, in my certain beach and then I learned that even if somebody is not as good as you, can offer you some really helpful advice that is useful. And it didn't take me long to realize that, but it's always humbling that somebody comes up the back end that's not as good as you, or you don't feel like they're as good as you, and you've got better skills, but they offer you some better advice that can like get you over a certain hump or make you realize something that you weren't even thinking about because you don't have to, or you didn't have to because your skills were at a certain level. I don't know. It's happened to me in many different scenarios that is always humbling.
Yeah.
to get some advice from somebody that you didn't feel like you needed advice from, and actually take it and use it.
Always helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So from this unifoil stuff, which actually I think I've seen you use it recently.
I was using it.
You used it on that KT board, right?
Yeah.
So you had it recently.
But I broke the fuse.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I broke
It was
the
a carbon
fuse.
fuse.
It was a carbon fuse with a foam core.
Okay.
So it just snapped and I lost my tail too. And
No way.
since then it's
Shit.
been sitting in the garage.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Yeah, but after that I got a lift because I tried the 90 when it came out and I was like blown, like my mind, I was mind blown. And I used
That's
that for
it.
winging.
Yeah, that's a small, fast foil.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, so I went
Wait.
from the 190 to the 90.
No way. Those are two very different foils.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I used that for winging and for the reefs. And then I got a 170. I bought a used 170 and I've been using that for prone, for wing, for downwinding, for everything pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you still use the 90 for winging?
I've used it a few times, but I haven't winged that much. Like, it's just better to downwind, I guess. Yeah, it's, pumping the wing, and if the wing dies down, you're left with small board.
Yeah,
in the
you're
middle.
just
You have
stuck.
to like paddle with the huge wing dragging behind you. It's not fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's fun, but if you have no wind, it's not fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that when you are winging and then you're learning how to downwind with a paddle, you're like, oh man, I wish I just had a wing to get me up and
Yeah.
go, because you feel like it's so much easier. But man, I've had some horrible sessions on a wing.
And then
Like,
if
just
you don't have
horrible.
any wind on your wing, you wish you had a paddle to
Yeah,
just
you're like, just
get
get me
out.
out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's rough. And you're learning on that hyper.
Yeah.
It was a hyper unifoil
Yeah, 190.
190, and you were downwinding that with the sup.
I didn't do a downwind per se. Like, I never did a run, like a logistical run. But yeah, I learned how to pump, how to flat water start, how to, like, I practiced at El Perra, like how to like go from the rocks to the bridge. And that was pretty much the first foil I used for downwinding. Yeah.
And then you got that 170,
Yep.
which is way better.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still an older foil.
But it works.
Yeah, they
Works
haven't
just fine.
they haven't upgraded it yet. I think they're still selling it on their site. I don't know if they
I'm not
still sell it
sure.
or not. I should know. I'm a lift dealer, but I don't actually sell as much lift as the other foil brands that I've got in the shop. But I'd assume that they're still selling it because it's a very relevant foil.
It's versatile.
Really
You
good.
can do everything with it.
Yeah, it's a high aspect, but it's pretty friendly.
Yeah.
I don't know how high aspect it is. It's probably like a 8 aspect ratio or something.
Yeah.
Maybe
it's
a
not
little
more than a 10, like maybe 9.
yeah,
8, 9.
maybe a little bit over an 8 or something
Yeah,
like that.
something like that.
And that's what Arland, when I first met him, that's what he was riding. And man, he could pump for days. Just pump and pump and pump. He was always on the 170, just pumping around Go You, like nonstop. And he surfed it pretty well for being such a big foil.
I mean, it was small for its time.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So you've recently been using that, and how many runs have you done in total?
well, my first run was a 180 HAX.
Okay.
Yeah. Then
So you've been downwinding with Vicente,
yeah, with Mikey.
from Sea Kindly.
I hit him up and he was like, "Yo, I'm sending a run today. Be there." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna be there."
You kind of just got into it then recently again.
Yeah, because I didn't have any time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like,
Because you're studying.
yeah, I'm studying and I've been traveling, competing on the
Okay.
racing. Yeah. So I pretty much bought the board, the downwind board, winged around with it, practiced some flat water stuff, and then I got super busy with,
Because that's been a year now.
yeah, with uni and with, travels.
Yeah.
So I got like a little window this summer. So I just want to go and dial it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Summertime is the perfect time
Yeah.
to learn how to downwind. It's it's been pretty bad wind
we
this
got,
year.
like, southerly winds now, but
Yeah, but I looked on my phone, and this same day last year, it was a south wind.
really,
Yeah, yeah,
So
which was
pattern.
yesterday and today, and I looked at my phone 1 year, and it was exactly the same south wind. I actually did a downwinder. I have it on my phone, and I said, never do that again. Like, I posted it on my Instagram. I was like, Wind turned, like it was throughout the midday, like 12 o'clock, it switched offshore and it turned like 17, 25 knots offshore. And I was out there doing a downwinder. It was brutal. It was like, because I paddled out past Caballos, and I felt it. I was like, it feels like it's going offshore. I'm like, this is, could be good. It could be bad. I don't know. It feels like it's getting pretty windy. And I was able to pop up because the swell was still pushing from the east when the wind was east. And I got up and I did like a couple runs on foil and I was like getting pushed out. And then I kept on falling. I was getting tired. And it was like 20 or 30 minutes into it. There started to be like cross chop. Like the wind started coming so strong offshore that it was pushing wind swell offshore. And it was like bumping in like this, and I was like, oh my God. Yeah, that's what I was like, no, that was horrible. And it's like, I tried to get on foil a couple times. I got up, but I couldn't last very long. And then I just paddled against the wind, side wind, all the way back into Ocean Park. It was going to be a run into Ocean Park anyway, so it's like 4 miles. But then I posted it, and I was like, don't do that again. Reminder to self, no offshore downwinding. And then Geo does a downwinder, sidewinder with offshore wind, 58 kilometers or something like that. Yeah. And that's kind of ridiculous.
That was gnarly.
Yeah. It was a little bit less south. It was a little bit like southeast. Wasn't as strong.
Yeah, but it started shifting, I think.
Yeah. As he started to go down his run, it started to shift more and more offshore. And once you come into San Juan, it's really brutal having an offshore wind like that. He's a beast, that guy.
My respects.
Yeah, I think he just does not care at all. It's just wild.
That's wild.
Yeah. I mean, that's cool. Like, I sometimes wish I only had one sport, you know?
Yeah.
To focus on, and I can't give up all these other things that I really love to do. And fortunate, you know, for me and what I'm doing right now, I really am focusing on the downwind thing, which helps, you know, excel and actually do it. And that's the most addicting thing.
Yeah, it's the best.
Like, it's the coolest thing to do. But sometimes, you know, when the conditions aren't right, it's all condition based for me, right? Which makes a huge difference. If the conditions aren't going to be good for a downwinder and the wind's a little bit offshore, I did it last year. The next day after that horrible downwinder, I saw that I went on a wing session, like dead offshore wind, and I went out to the reefs and I was winging offshore. And I went winging all the way to Caballos and all the way back with the offshore wind. Winging with a south wind is not a big deal if it's strong enough.
If it's strong enough.
Yeah. If it's not strong.
Like, when Dio did his downwind, I went out on a wing.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And like I managed to pop up, but I was on a sinker.
Oh, no.
So I ended up being stranded like 2 kilometers offshore. So I had to paddle in.
Youch.
So if it's strong enough, it's fine.
Yeah.
But
man, gear choice can make or ruin a session. And I sometimes envy people that don't have a lot of equipment.
That just have a big sail, big board, big foil, and whatever,
like,
you're set.
There's no decision making. Like, you go out and you're like, what am I going to ride today? Well, I have a 5-meter wing with an 80-liter board and a Hyper 190. Like, what am I going to do? Like, that's what I'm going to ride today.
I'm going to wing foil.
Yeah.
That's a wing foil.
That's it. But sometimes, and I've had it actually where I want to go out for a session and I have equipment everywhere, right? I have it here in the shop. I have some at the hotel. I have some in my truck. I have some at my house. So I have to figure out like where the equipment is and what I want to use. And sometimes I won't go for a session because I feel too flustered of like what kind of gear I'm going to use and where I'm going to collect it from and how I'm going to do it, which sounds ridiculous when you're actually going to go for a downwinder. You'll drive 2 hours to do 4 kilometers and get in a taxi and drive back and forth. Like, there's so many logistics around trying to get a downwind run that it feels silly that you wouldn't walk from Cayo Luisa to Ocean Park with your kite because it's too much. You know? And I've had that
5 minutes.
I've had that before and I'm like, oh my God, how privileged can you be? And then when downwinding comes around, I will do whatever it takes to go and do a downwinder.
Yeah.
And I've spent, my wife is just extremely patient and I'm very fortunate because. But I think she's fortunate that she lets me go out on these sessions, because if not, I am just a basket case. I cannot relax, and I will get angry and stressed out if I don't go on the water. Like if I didn't go for a session this morning and then the wind is offshore and then I'm working all day in the shop or something, I get depressed, and it's pretty sad. But she knows that, so she's like, hey, you should go for a downwinder. I'll see you later, just send me your location so I know you're not drifting off to sea, And I'm like, okay, thank you so much. Let me go. So how's that been for the last couple of weeks that you've been like really getting back into it? Because I've heard from that, actually that's why I texted you, and I was like, oh, you should come on, because I saw that you're really getting after it. And I remembered, I'm like, man, he bought that board like a year ago, disappeared, in my eyes, right? and me not knowing who you are, never seen you before, I was like, oh, you resurfaced, you're back on the chat, the downwind chat, and then you're really getting after it, and you're doing it, and you're doing it very quickly. In like regards to what I see and how people progress, you're getting it really fast, coming from, you do know how to foil, and you do have I know now that you do have a little bit of a foiling background, and you have a SUP background, which is, I think, the big thing, man.
I have
Having
foiling
that
background, SUP background, and downwinding background. You just have to like put it all together. And
then just
figure it out
and paddle it out.
Yeah.
I think being able to put the power down in that paddle
Definitely.
and
Definitely helps a lot.
Yeah, and knowing then to get up on foil and being able to read those bumps, like it's just all of your sports have kind of accumulated to come into this one. And how's that been over the last couple of weeks?
It's been great. Like I've enjoyed even the bat runs. Like I've learned a ton. I tried a bunch of gear.
You've been hanging out with Gio too much.
He lent me his code foils, and they're awesome. So
I saw all your lift stuff go on the market. I was like, good choice. No, I mean, there's tons of good equipment out there, but once you.
Yeah, but I kind of want to progress from the 170. Like I tried the 120. It's also good. I have yet to try the 150. So like, I just need a faster, more high aspect foil. Yeah. Because like I felt the difference from having a small foil and being able to like eat 4 bumps in a row, or like, just glide a lot more without having to pump or like carve because you're not fast enough. Yeah. So.
Yeah, those. I assume you're talking about the R series, right? Yeah. Those 13 aspect ratio. They're just.
We're mental.
So much glide, and on the smaller sizes, once you go to like the 770 down, the 770 and then the 680, insane amount of speed out of them. And if you can paddle up a 770, which Gio is doing all the time, I haven't spent much time on the 770 because I feel like it's, it was a little bit smaller for me.
Right.
And I just wasn't very good at paddling up. I always had an issue paddling up. I just didn't put enough time and practice into that. I'm a really good foiler. So once I'm up on foil, I do not come down, and I can manage my way, and I can pump around, and that's totally fine. But it was getting it up on foil and just being so exhausted trying to get up such a small foil with my horrible paddling technique that kind of deterred me from going to a small foil. But if you've got that paddle technique and you can get it up and you can be on one of those small foils, just such a huge advantage. There's so much fun. But
I tried the 770, but it was kind of marginal because it was like we did 2 runs back to back. The first run I tried the 770 and it wasn't blowing that much, and like there was like this cloud that came, so it was kind of a lull. And I tested the low end out of it pretty much, and then I came back and did it on the 960, which was the first code I tried. I tried it in Barcelona, and it was awesome. Like I was kind of skeptical because coming from a 190, a 170, pumping up a 140 something. I think it's 140, like 150. I was
because the 980 S, the 980 is a 151.
Yeah, so it's like 149, so 148.
Yeah, something
so
like that.
I was like, am I gonna be able to paddle that up? And I did, and I was like, whoa, these foils have a lot of lift, and it it was way easier. I was blowing a lot harder, and I thought I was maxing out because like I was like kind of accustomed to the 770 from before, but it was still super fun.
Yeah.
So like, I think the 770 on like a really windy day would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for your skills, having an 860 and a 680,
The 680.
yes.
Really?
I think if you go 860 as your big foil, 860 is my big foil. I don't have that 960 in my range because I don't feel like I need it. Or on those days, I guess I don't know. It's different. I just don't want a downwind on those days that are like flat.
Right.
You know, if I can flat water start a foil pretty easy, I don't know if I want to be on those days on that foil. You know.
Makes sense.
So the 860, man, it has an extremely good low end. Like you just would not need to go any bigger than that.
I haven't tried it, but they say
Dude,
it's
the 860 is so
another level.
so money. And if you're able to paddle that thing up, then get something way smaller. Man, that's a super fun foil.
You
But-
said 680?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds small.
Dude, you'd be shocked. I think they're coming out with a 600 too.
Wow.
It's going like 680, and then they're doing something like a 600, and in that range. I don't know exactly what size it is, but if you can paddle up a 770, you know, not really having had a whole downwind season in you, and being able to run it on that marginal day, I think you'll be quite surprised at where you're going to progress with this sport. And I mean, not just with those code foils, but in general, right? What you can do. And this summer is going to be, man, it's so much fun when the wind turns on in the summer,
Yeah.
which we thought it did. And then we get this week of like
Yeah,
a bunch of
southerly
crap,
winds,
which is
whatever.
it's no fun for anybody. But it's just so consistent. This summer breeze, there's no swell, so you know exactly how to read it.
Yeah.
If the wind's good, then the downwind is good. In the wintertime, there's a whole lot of different calculations you have to do
Yeah.
with the swell angle and the current and what swells are coming from what direction and how much wind there is. And then it gets a little bit more daunting. For me personally, I've had some pretty horrible runs this winter that were actually kind of scary, you know, being out there with so much energy.
What's your favorite run? Like,
My favorite run?
yeah. Standard.
All of them.
All of them?
All of them. All of them are just so much fun. I don't know if I have a favorite. If it would be not condition based, because they're all pretty similar
Yeah.
in certain aspects. My favorite run is just going from Caballos to La Ocho, because to go to La Ocho from here, I go with my downwind board in my truck. It's 6 minutes
Yeah.
to get to La Ocho, park there, get in a taxi, or someone drives us or whatever, and you go down the highway. You're in Piñones to Caballos, like super quick.
Yeah.
It's 15 minutes to get there if there's no traffic. And then you do a downwinder, it's 6 miles, 7 miles. Takes you 25 to 30 minutes. If you try to make it as long as possible, you can, and really push it. I got 50 minutes out of that run, which was super.
Doing donuts?
Yeah, super. Like just going crosswind. It was like back and forth. And I'm like, that day I went out, there was nobody that wanted to go with me. Mickey dropped me off, which was awesome. I caught them at the end of the run. I'm like, let's go again. You guys ready? Because I had like some free time.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I'm not going, but I'll drop you off. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll go alone. I don't have an issue.
Sure.
I mean, it's not like we go together anyway. You know, we're at the beginning, we're at the end, we talk shit to each other, and then that's it. But so he dropped me off, and I told him, I'm like, I'm just going to try to have as much fun as I can and just mess around, because
And
there's
make it
nobody else
last.
there. Make it last and see what I can do. And I just went back and forth and back and forth, and like doing spins or doing whatever, and fell a bunch of times and just didn't care, and turned a 6.5 mile or whatever into almost 10 miles, which was pretty epic. So yeah, I mean, you can do, I mean, that's for sure. It's for sure my favorite run, because it's just so easy. Then I get back to La Ocho, and it's 5 minutes to get home. You know, the Dorado run is great because it's a cool run. It's 10 miles, you know, but then anything here over 10 miles, you got to drive a lot more.
Yeah. There's traffic involved.
Vacía Talega, that would be a good one, right? So it's still on the same strip. You still end up back at home. You're still in San Juan. But going to Isla de Cabras and Salinas for me from San Juan.
Yeah, from here.
You have to drive all the way around and then down to the point. It adds like 25, 30 minutes to your drive, which sucks.
Yeah.
Which is worth it.
It's worth it in the
Yeah,
end.
but if I
you
have
don't
to
have time.
Yeah, if I have to be picky and choosy, then yeah, the Caballos to La Ocho run is by far my favorite. I mean, it's a long paddle out, 10, 15 minutes to paddle out past to the wind line. But it's not so bad. You know, one day I'm going to get one of those guys on a jet ski that are parked there having a party and drive me out, or on a boat. That's what I really want, is somebody to feel sorry for me or ask me what I'm doing and be like, yeah, I'm going to go out there. You want to drop me off and see me start my run? see me off on an adventure?
Oh, that'd be great.
That would be super epic. Yeah.
But it's not that long of a paddle, like, honestly, to the buoy.
No,
It's like
not.
maybe 2K.
So what are you looking forward to this summer?
I want to be able to, like, send consistent runs. Like, maybe dry runs is pretty much the goal, I think. Yeah.
I think you can manage that.
I think I can.
Yeah.
A few weeks more of practice.
What's your longest run so far?
La Ocho to Salinas.
Cool, man. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Sure.
It was
Thanks for
good
the
to hear. Yeah, it's good to hear your story and a little bit of the supping background that kind of pushed into the downwind, which was very similar to Mickey, but Mickey's a psycho. Just kidding. Do you have any events that are coming up in the future?
I have the ISA Worlds. They're in Denmark. And then I have the PASA, the Pan American Surf Games, that are in Peru.
Nice.
In October.
What are the timelines on those ones?
Denmark is in September.
Okay.
And October is the PASA.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Good luck.
That's pretty much it for now.
So keep on training on the downwind foil sup, and then you can do anything, right?
It's cross training.
Yeah, it is cross training.
It is.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Thank you.